Hi, this is a quick little introduction tutorial on Israeli independence, the first Arab-Israeli War, 1948 to 1949, designed by Darren Levinoff, published by Victory Point Games in 2008, and programmed for the web by myself, Tom Heaney. The game is about that first Israeli war, and it is a solitaire game in which the player controls the various forces of the embryonic Israeli state against a whole host of five Israeli or five Arab armies that are all moving in towards the player, who is attempting to hold West Jerusalem and to drive away the various Arab armies. The game uses a series of cards which capture events and trace the course of the war, moving the various armies in towards the central point of West Jerusalem. And it is the player's job to use the minimal resources that they have in order to push back these armies. This is primarily in the form of offenses. Each turn, you'll be able to attack usually 1 to 3 times in order to drive back these armies. So let's go ahead and bounce over to the beginning as if we were going to start the game. When you start, you get a little splash screen, and obviously we want to start a new game. There are a number of options. You can turn those pictures on and off, but there's probably no reason to do that. The sounds are pretty basic, but they can be useful. Reserve offenses basically give you extra abilities to launch offenses, just a few of them. This can be useful if you're still learning the game. The game can be very tough and unforgiving. And then the use +1 defense of Jerusalem gives you a little bit of an edge when you're engaged in a last ditch attempt to hold on to Jerusalem and drive away the Arab armies. I do recommend the first few times you play the game that you turn this one on. There are currently 2 modes to play the game in. You can play the historic game in which the cards, that is the events, occur in the chronological series that they did. And this is useful if you're using the game in a history class and you want to learn the course of those events and deal with those things as they actually happened. But a more challenging game is the basic game in which the cards come at you randomly and you can't predict what's going to happen. And that's what I'm going to start with here. So I'm going to click this. And we get our main screen, and after a moment, the game is ready to begin. On the right-hand side is a rather abstract map of Israel and the Palestinian territories and the surrounding areas, including Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and the Sinai Peninsula off the map down here to the left, with West Jerusalem at its center. And you have these 5 Arab armies that are going to be coming in, attempting to take West Jerusalem. Each one of them has a particular strength. The higher the number, the more difficult it is to drive them back, the stronger they are. The Jordanian army is the most effective, and the Lebanese army is the least effective. You also have these circle areas, which are within the West Bank. And obviously, if you're familiar with the region, this is not really the West Bank. The West Bank is over here. But like I said, the map is somewhat abstracted in order to fit everything onto the screen. There are certain conditions and events that affect these circular areas of the West Bank and the Arab armies that are in them, as you'll see. On the left, you'll be drawing a card. There'll be the number of cards that remain in the deck that you have to go. The card that you just drew, the number, the headline telling you what event has taken place, a photograph associated with that event, and a commentary of what occurred during that particular event. And that gives you some ideas about the history of the first Arab-Israeli War as you go along. In here will be the movements, the advances or retreats of the various Arab armies, along with a number of other details. So let's go ahead and draw our first card and see what that looks like. Okay, so we have the Yazdan Massacre. And we are playing out of order. We're playing a random card. And you'll notice, and you'll hear the marching in the background there, that the Arab armies are all marching forward. This is a difficult card for the Israeli player, as all of the Arab armies advance. And not only that, but now you have a -1 die roll to all attacks. That's going to make your offenses more difficult. We have 3 offenses available to us as the player, and we will use those to try and push back these various armies. When you attack, when you use one of these offenses, you click on an enemy force, and a couple of little icons come up. The no symbol is basically, you can click that and say, I don't want to attack that. Do I want to attack it? No, I don't. If you click on the dice, you are rolling the die and making that attack. You'll use one of your offenses, and your die roll has to be higher than this number in order to be successful. And in this case, we're subtracting 1. So I'm going to go ahead and try and attack Lebanon. Lucky there, I rolled a 5, -1, which is of course a 4, but that's higher than a 2. So I still have 2 more attacks. I'm going to try and drive back the Syrians. Doing pretty well here. And Egypt. Okay, that one did not work because I rolled a 3 -1, which is definitely not greater than 3. Okay, so now we've driven back a couple of armies and we're ready to draw a new card. So we have a new event, a new description. In this one, the Egyptian army is becoming tired and weary of the war. And we have a chance here. If we push Egypt back to El Arish, then it will withdraw from the war. It'll cease to exist within the game. And that's something you want to have happen as the player. So we have 2 offenses. We get a +2 to attack Egypt. I'm definitely going to do that. So we've driven them back. However, you'll notice that Jordan is sneaking up here. It's getting much closer. It's already passed through most of the West Bank. I'm going to go ahead and try and attack it. And that did not work. Okay, so we draw a new card. Palestinians aid Arab armies. All Arab armies on round spaces advance. So Iraq was here in Jenin. It's advanced forward, as has the Jordanian army from Ramallah to East Jerusalem. And this is now directly threatening West Jerusalem. If this Jordanian army enters West Jerusalem, I have lost the game. So I'm going to try and drive them back. There. Okay. So going to continue. We get 2 offenses, but no attacks against armies in round spaces. So we can't even attack the Jordanian army, but now the Iraqi army is threatening West Jerusalem. So let's try and push them back. Oh, but now I can't attack that. So we'll use our other attack on, and it was not successful. Next turn, we have the chance to push Lebanon out of the war. So we want Lebanon to be up here in its 4 box. So I'm going to go ahead and try and drive that back. Uh-oh. Now, the problem here, I've pushed them back, so Lebanon is going to be removed from the game, but I've left the Iraqi army sitting in Ramallah right outside of West Jerusalem. Let's see if that was a mistake. Okay. Luckily, the Iraqi army did not move forward. Let's see if we can drive them away from the gates of Jerusalem. Apparently not. That was a bad series of rolls there. Okay, we got a little bit lucky. Iraq did not move forward, and we have a +1 to our offenses. So let's give that another try. I'm going to go ahead and all the way back to Janine. Next card. Okay, now we're being threatened on two fronts. We've got the Syrians and the Jordanians, but we only have one offensive. I'm going to use that against the Syrians. And that's all I can do for this turn. Okay, that was interesting. There's a truce, and I can't launch any attacks. So next card. And that is the end of the game. I wasn't able to drive back the Jordanians, who were able to move all the way into West Jerusalem, and I have now been defeated. We click on this and we'll find out how badly we were decisively defeated. That did not go well. Despite the fact that we had pushed out the Lebanese and the Egyptians, the other armies were still able to get in there. So that's a good example and intro to the game. It is difficult to win. If you are starting out, I do recommend that you use those +1 die roll modifiers for defending Jerusalem. And one other thing, let me bounce over here, start a new game. Two more things, I should say. Basic, oh shoot. Pardon me, hang on here. Oh, good grief. Okay, what I want to do is show you how to use those reserve offenses. It's a little awkward here, so let's go to the options. Let's start a new game. Yes, please. Start new game, and I'm going to click use reserve offenses there and begin the basic game. And we're ready to start. The Syrians have moved forward, the Jordanians have moved forward, and the Egyptians have moved forward. The usefulness of those reserves are that you can use them. I believe you have up to 3 of them as sort of emergency attacks. So you have your regular attacks, but you could also launch reserve attacks. And eventually, oh dear, obviously something needs to be fixed there. Lastly, options. Click options. You can change a few things here. The big thing is open and save the load menu. You can save your game to a disk, to your hard drive, and this will pop up. And I'm going to save this in downloads. You save that. And of course, you reverse that process. Open the menu, load from the disk, go to the directory that you want, open it up, and continue the game. And you'll pick up where you left off. So with that, obviously, we've spotted a couple of bugs here that need to be fixed, but I hope you enjoy this. I hope that you learn from it. If you're a teacher who's planning on using this in a classroom, please let me know. I'd be happy to hear your approaches and the results, and we'll see you later.